Call the meeting to order for Wicomico County Council budget session for Thursday, May 11th, 2023. It is a work session, so I will let you have the floor. The first item on the agenda is the airport. Thank you all for being here. If you could state your name for the public who is watching today.
Pam Olin, Finance Director.
Tony Rudy, Airport Director.
Bunky Luffman, Director of Administration. The county executive was at the Beaver Run event as well, and she'll be here in a few moments.
Mr. Rudy, we'll give you the floor, if you don't mind, between you and Mr. Luffman and Ms. Olin.
You want me to start, or you want to start?
If you want to start, I would be happy to join in and answer questions.
The primary changes for this is that we are looking at taking over the ARF services for the airport. But to do that, we have to get people trained and meet FAA requirements. And as such, this budget entertains that we will maintain the contract with the outside company that we have for the full fiscal year of fiscal '24, but we will bring employees on in January to start the training process so that when the next renewal happens in October of '24, we're ready to go to take over. We don't feel that if we fund those people on July 1, that we would have enough time to hire them, train them, and turn off the service in October of this coming year. So what we have decided to do that we feel it's most appropriate and it would meet FAA requirements so that we would actually have a trained staff is that we will keep the contract that we currently have, and then from there, we will also hire people, but we won't hire them until the second half of the fiscal year. At that point, we will then get them trained and ready to go so that we could in-house take over this ARF service, and it would be a cost savings in fiscal '25. We can't accomplish that cost savings without having kind of both at the same time in '24. The other thing you will notice is because of the American Rescue dollars running out on the operating side, the CARES funding that they have, we are now budgeting an appropriation. This has been a long time coming that there would be an appropriation. There was an appropriation to the airport prior to the COVID aspect, but COVID kind of put off the time frame, and we're now at a point where we're having to budget that again. Primarily, it's to cover the cost of debt for the expansion. So if you look, we're budgeting about $1 million worth of, about $1.3 million worth of appropriation and about $1.3 million worth of debt service for the airport. So they can cover their operations, they can't cover the cost of their capital. And that's the same thing that happened with the Civic Center is that.
Which page is this on, if you don't mind me asking?
So in the Munis detail, it would be in Department 51.
I don't have any Munis.
You should have the Munis in the far back.
Oh,
It's under expenses, and it'll be like all the way towards the back, Department 51. It's actually, but it's its own section, so it's like page 4 of the airport section. 52, sorry, airport's 52, not 51.
You have a page number?
52.
It would be under the other funds tab, and it would be the second, so there's going to be like 5 or 8 pages worth of solid waste, and then there will be the airport behind that. And so it's page 4 of the airport section.
Got it.
So you can see airport intergovernmental $1,297,000 of revenue, and we have P&I expense of $1,275,000. Like the Civic Center, which this happened several years ago, they have switched from being an enterprise fund to a governmental fund. This is going to happen with the airport. Airports can cover their operations, they can't cover the cost of capital. The government has to cover the cost of the capital for that, and that's what the interest is the principal and interest is. Those are the main changes that I'm aware of in the budget. Did I miss anything?
No, I think that's it.
So any other questions council might have?
questions from anyone? I know the executive was kind enough to share a document in reference to landing fees, et cetera. And I believe that was in exchange for, specifically for our responsibility in the ARF program now. Are we going to see that in the budget maybe next year that'll show some revenue stream from that? I know it is a very delicate issue.
Yes, yeah, we should be showing that. Unfortunately, it was a document that was buried in our files that we just came up with late last year. It was too late to bring this to Piedmont's attention. But we were fortunate enough that the CARES funding has covered a lot of the other operating expenses, so, but we did present that to Piedmont because it hasn't been updated for a few years, and I'm not sure how the original number was figured, but it's quite a bit more than was initially presented to Piedmont. They may have just had strictly manpower, and it may have been at a lot lower rate at the time. But we pulled together all of our expenses right now, presented that to them, so that'll be reflected in the budget. And it should actually come down, being that we're bringing this in-house. We're going to have a savings, obviously getting rid of the contract, but paying our own employees. We'll also have additional savings with the facility that we're building starting this year. So that cost will come down, as well as the revenues come down from it. So that's a good thing for Piedmont, but we'll be honoring that agreement that we had with them.
It does seem the bulk of your increases is specifically geared towards the ARF program.
Yes.
And one other thing I might want to mention is when we went to the automated parking, we've seen quite an increase in parking revenue too. So we're not paying that company for their manpower, their profits, and that system's been working pretty well. So incrementally, we're looking at all these little things to help boost our revenue stream.
Your private hangar rent, are most of them rented?
They're all rented.
They're all
We actually have a waiting list now.
Wow.
But
Just building more?
the problem is they're very expensive to build, and the rent you get from them, it would take a long time to pay off. Any larger hangars, we're hoping that people would come in, they would invest, we'd give them like a 20 or 30-year lease where they could depreciate that, basically just charge them ground rent, and then at the end of that term, it would revert back to the airport, and then that's when we make our money. But we haven't been approached by anyone yet to build a large facility, but there are plenty of people out there that want to rent one, so.
So they're all rented, they're all leased out, so I guess you couldn't up the rent at all. I mean, I don't know, if they're in that high demand, I just curiosity.
One thing we've done this past year, we did a fee study that looked at all of our rates and charges at the airport. They're just wrapping up part of that now, and we'll have to sit down and actually revisit this and see what, maybe enter negotiations with the different entities on the airport and bring it more in line.
So one of the other things that we always have to consider, though, it's kind of partly along the lines of like having our Cedar Hill and Nanticoke boat slips. If there's a recession downturn, this is where those discretionary funds of people renting so we don't want to price ourselves out of the market.
You're right.
So we have to be cognizant of that if we're raising the rate. So yes, right now we are 100% rented, but we also are looking at some economic uncertainties. And I know with Rec and Parks, when we had an economic downturn, our rental amount out at Cedar Hill and Nanticoke went down because of the fact that people were willing to give up their slips to save funds.
Right.
So it's a little probably harder to get rid of a plane than a boat, and you can't store it in your backyard quite the same way.
Planes move.
But
You can go ahead and park that sucker somewhere else.
So again, those are all the balancing acts that we have to look at.
I get it.
When we're looking at the fees associated with the airport.
Thank you.
Questions from anyone? No? Right. Mr. Rudy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Taking the time.
Have a good day.
Are they coming? Is Josh and Jen coming?
They
She's
should be.
right out here.
Josh was behind me, but I'm not quite sure. It was tough getting out of the parking lot, like Jeff said. They're also working on the road. You had to go east before you could go west.
What's the number of this fund, Pam?
Purchasing is Fund 11, I think, or 10, Department, sorry, it's not Fund, it's Department 10. There is a slight difference. Anything in the general fund is considered a department.
Right.
The airport is its own fund, so these are departments, airport is a fund. So,
Page 17,
Of,
expenses.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura.
so
Yes.
you need to introduce yourself since you're new to the table.
Yes, you are.
Amy Kernodle, purchasing agent.
Good
So,
video.
on the purchasing side of things, their budget is relatively flat. There is some growth, but that's due to changeover of employees and primarily then different employees having different benefit load.
Right.
You know, it depends on who you have in the positions. With a department that they only have 3 employees, changing from one person to having benefits versus one person not having benefits, it vastly changes the numbers that you have. Additionally, we will be having a retirement in that department at the beginning of this fiscal year, or at the end of this fiscal year right now. So what that means is that we have budgeted that replacement position at the midpoint, because that has been our policy, is to allow our space to hire people. And so that has affected their numbers some as well.
Any questions?
OPEB, that's our health insurance into retirement. So that's it stands for other post-employment benefits. So as a government, because we offer healthcare into retirement, we are required, like our pension, to set aside funds to show that we're funding it in advance.
Okay.
Might be a little bit off topic, but what was the percentage increase of benefits?
So right now, it's in here at 4%. We have been told now that health insurance is going up to 5%. So I have prepared, I didn't make photocopies, but I can for the next meeting. Across all departments, that 1 percentage point is basically an additional $85,000 that we will be requesting to amend the budget by, so that every department is not short at the beginning of the fiscal year because of the health insurance increase. So we have calculated the number, we put it in at 4%. It's 5% based on what we have gotten from the health insurance, our health insurance broker, and thus we need an additional $85,000 spread across all departments and all funds. Any other questions on purchasing?
Mr. President?
Yes.
If I may. So I see that there's a drastic increase in the county parking. Is that part of
And that's primarily due.
City?
Yeah, the
city
city's.
raising the rates?
Yeah.
Daggone.
So we have, so last year, they didn't notify us until after the fiscal year that they were making the change in rates. This year, we got a little bit of notice ahead of time, so we were able to build some of that in here.
I'll tell you, all right, well.
Well, and I'll share a concern with that. So we pay this parking at the parking garage, and those spots are not reserved. So when you have large court cases like we just had, sometimes we have to tell our employees, hey, you need to, that have those spots, you need to come in early, otherwise there's going to be so much traffic from the court, you might have a space. And literally, it's a space that we as a county pay for. So I feel like at some point, we should get reserved spots. I do.
Because we have,
That price.
that's in the garage, right? But we do have some over here as well.
Yes, yeah. But it's tough. There's, you know, even when they call one panel, if you arrive at 8:15 the morning that they've called a whole panel of jurors, you may or may not find a parking space.
Yeah, you go to the hospital to park, you can't even park in the first 3 levels or the first 2 levels because they're all reserved for cardiac patients and doctors, et cetera. I don't know if we could talk to the city possibly about some
And
reservations.
the concern I have is that with the city selling off all their surface lots, it's not going to get any better. And there are also going to be issues associated with, once now, right now, some of it will be a transition, because right now, all the Ross construction workers are parking in the garage. So those would be replaced with full-time residents, but again, that will also cause issues.
Don't they have 450 spots dedicated for the Ross in the garage?
My understanding is yes, but it's supposed to be on the 3rd floor, but they won't, the health department is also supposed to, the jurors and stuff are also supposed to park up, but there's no monitoring of that. So unless they're making a change, and maybe they are, I haven't heard one way or the other, if they're going to be monitoring that the people that have the permits associated with the Ross, because right now, there are also no overnight parking allowed in the parking garage. So I don't know if that's their way of going to be a monitoring, that only cars that are on the top floor, again, that's my understanding is where it is the top floor. So please, if that's wrong, I apologize. But I'd heard that it's the top floor. If and maybe that's going to be their way of monitoring. If something's parking there
increase.
not on the top floor, then it would be
Yeah.
not appropriate to be there. So,
Are there any other questions? Did you have any comments that you wanted to make? Take a, no? Okay. All right, well,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
the other one is Amy does have to stay for the leased vehicles, if you have any questions associated with
Good.
leased.
Stay around, hang around.
Sorry,
So that's
sorry,
good,
Amy.
that's good.
What page is that?
Because I'm not going to make,
It's on page 31 in your books. Yeah, leased vehicles.
so this is the 5th year of the contract. I am aware, having been sitting in this seat now for several budgets, that there are some on council who do not like this program. We have said all along that we have to get through a full 5 years. This would be year 5. We are highly requesting that this maintain the funding, because what we have been able to do with this program, and I've got to open my other binder, sorry, because it's got all the information in it for that. But when we started this program, we had 69 vehicles that were over 10 years old. Right now, we're at 10, I think, vehicles that are over 10 years old. And most of those vehicles that are over 10 years old, and this is not counting the sheriff's fleet. This
That was
is,
my, yeah, that's nice.
so this is not the sheriff's fleet. This is other vehicles. Most of the remaining ones are at solid waste, because solid waste is not participating with most of their vehicles.
This excludes the sheriff's office?
Yes. The sheriff's office has their,
But counts every vehicle other than the sheriff's office?
every vehicle other than the sheriff's office that is in the general fund. So you will see a leased vehicle cost at Rec and Parks, Civic Center, Tourism, because they all have their own leased vehicles, so those costs are in those funds. But this is all the other general fund vehicles that we have as a county.
So as far as this fund, how many vehicles is that?
I'm not sure I have that answer. I can get you that answer.
As far as this fund, how many vehicles is that?
Oh.
That's a heck of an increase.
I mean,
In a year.
no, it's been 4. It's been 4 years. We have gone, oh, you mean the increase in
Yeah,
cost?
from 2023 to 2024,
Yeah.
565,000 to 830.
So you have to understand that the other piece of that is this is the 5th year of the plan to get the last of those old vehicles. And then there is a revenue that is on page, let me get it for you.
The last of the old vehicles.
So we get a revenue from selling off our vehicles. And right now, that estimate is, and I just want to make sure I have the right number.
187.
I don't have it memorized. I apologize. I want to actually look.
Come
at
Come on, Pam, you don't have it
You're talking
memorized?
about the money, the revenue we've received from leased vehicles?
Yes.
I saw it went from 300,000 to 187.
So because we're now at a point where a lot of our older stuff has been sold, that number has gone down. But again, if you think about at $817,000, that's paying for us to have a fleet that's under 10 years old versus driving vehicles that, I read when I first joined Rec and Parks, I drove a vehicle that as I was driving it, the baseboard filled with water as I was driving it, and my feet got wet while driving a car. So,
Hard to make a decision on this, though, without knowing the number of vehicles.
we can get you that information.
That's fine.
I have 93 vehicles currently on lease. 45 are non-leased items, so that would be your solid wastes. 5 vehicles are currently on order. 3 of them are street and roads, 2 are emergency service.
I think it'd probably help us, because we don't have to make a decision today.
Right.
Take your time and just, if you can just get the totals, that'd be
We'll
great.
get you a list of how many that this is adding to, and also how many that it is then getting you the average. We'll get you those numbers.
With the lease agreement, does that take care of oil changes and such, and like new
Yes, and our
tires?
cost per month from when we owned our vehicles
Uh-huh.
to now has significantly decreased.
Right.
We had a $140.78 per month per vehicle. Now we're down to $34.84 per vehicle per month for maintenance.
In
That
maintenance
adds up
cost.
quick.
Yes.
Those are numbers we might want to have too whenever people,
Okay.
we make.
Well, keep in mind too, because that's a bit of a misnomer, and when they first came in to promote the program, if you buy a new car instead of leasing it, you'll still have a reduced,
Correct, but the advantage
Fee.
is that we can turn these over.
oh, I get it,
Yeah.
I get it, yeah.
And so, yes, but by bringing our age down, we've been able to bring our maintenance costs down. We've also been able to, because of the shortages in chips and that kind of stuff at the end of a fiscal year. So we budget as if we're gonna get every vehicle on July 1. Kind of like we budget for our employees, that we're gonna have 100% employment the whole year. We don't get our vehicles on July 1. We get them throughout the year, and so one of the things that we have done with this lease program is also buy down our leases. So even though it says $817,000, we may not have that full expense next year because things won't arrive, and/or we have bought down leases in the prior fiscal years with savings that we have had. So instead of paying a 5-year lease, we're now paying a 3-year lease.
So this is the highest expense we will have. So let's just say if we didn't have this lease program, we own vehicles, vehicle breaks down, we got maintenance, we've got all this other jazz, and we got an old vehicle.
And the other piece of it is that the year I walked into the county, it was a huge deal that our department got 1 vehicle because it had been so long. Because that is the first place, I will readily admit, that's the first place people look to say, oh, we can just live with the vehicle that we have. That's the first place you look at your own home is that.
Right.
But the advantage of having vehicles that don't break down and having our employees out on the road is advantageous to us as an employer. And then additionally, the one piece for the new people is, it is called a lease program, but at the end of the term, there's no buyout. We own the vehicle. So if at the end of 5 years, which is not my recommendation, but if at the end of 5 years, we decide that we don't want to replace a vehicle because it's still doing well for us and it's now ours. It's not like when you and I go out and lease a vehicle that we have to turn it back in or pay a lump sum amount to turn it back or to keep it. That's all built into the cost. So yes, it's called a lease, but it's primarily a financing mechanism that we have through a company that has a great purchasing power, like Enterprise, better purchasing power than we, if we go out, they can get us these vehicles at a cheaper cost than what we can get them on the market.
Now, we did,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, so after the 5 years, we own some of these vehicles?
We own all of them.
Okay, so this is my take is, okay, so if we own them all and we renegotiate a deal, another 5-year deal, do we turn around and start selling off the other vehicles?
So that's the one advantage is that then we have a newer fleet so that other people can buy our used vehicles if we want to replace. We aren't required to replace, but if we want to replace, we have that option because again, we 100% own these vehicles.
When I guess the contract term comes renewable, will that come back before the council or not?
So
We'd like to see it. I mean, I understand sometimes what we have to approve or don't have to approve, but I would like to have a work session on it before it gets approved again. And you say after 5 years, we can, it's ours. But I think it'd be important to know how much money we had invested in those 5 years to purchase that vehicle after the 5 years.
It's like
And we've got a ways to go, right? I'm assuming.
a year.
So-
Next year?
So 24 is the 5th year of the program. So in theory, we should have turned over our fleet by the end of 24 for the departments that are participating in the program. So solid waste is not participating at the moment, so their fleet has not turned over. The rest of the fleet, again excluding sheriff's office, is under a different part of the lease program. And so we have said all along that we need 5 years to see if this is a cost-effective thing, and so far, it is proving to be cost-effective, because again, if you think $817,000 for vehicles, how many vehicles could we actually buy with that number? Not as many as we actually have. And so the fact that we've been able to turn over our fleet and get it much more current for that lower dollar amount is a good thing for this county.
Yeah, my thing, and I you know very well that I've never been an advocate for it, because my last car I kept for 6 years, and the car before that I kept for 9 years. So, and anyone will tell you, it's so funny because the last time I bought a car, I accidentally said I might be getting another one in 3 years, because I never do that. And the guy across the table said, well, you should be leasing. If it's less than 3 years, you ought to be leasing. But in the industry, everyone will tell you anything more than 3. I mean, we could honestly keep a car here, and we did that before, and keep them in good condition for 6 or 7 years with,
And we have that-
80,000 miles on.
And we still have that ability under this program. So we evaluate every year which ones, again, we're still in that kind of ramp up phase to get all of them under it. But, as we get to year 6, 7, if we continue this program, we can say, okay, the very first wave of vehicles that we put under the program, okay, the one that goes out with our inspector and drives all day, every day, that might be one we want to replace and get them a new one. But the one that is our pool vehicle for this building, it's 5 years old and has 25,000 miles on it. I'm making that number up. I have no idea. So please. But, so maybe that's a vehicle that we keep, or Enterprise tells us we can buy that 5-year, 25,000 mile vehicle for more than it's going to cost you to replace it, because it's got so few miles. So that's, again, the advantage of us having this partner with us making these decisions, because they can look at the age of our fleet, the age of our vehicles, the number of miles, and say, what is the best vehicles for you to keep in your fleet, and what is going to give you the best bang for your buck to possibly sell?
So, in the past, we bought off a state contract, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever done a comparison to see what, say we'll take a Ford pickup, F-150 pickup. Have you ever done a comparison when this comes in to see what you could buy a Ford F-150? Because on the state contract, when I first came on board, they bought a pickup off a state contract, and the state contract was with a dealer in Delaware, and I checked with a local Ford dealer at the time, and we could actually buy the pickup locally cheaper than we could get it off the state contract. So have you ever done that comparison?
When we did the original contract, we did some of those comparisons. I will say, though, that the local, that's where we would be violating our procurement law, by just going to a local dealer and getting a price. State contract gives us a price, it's already been bid. We would have to send out a solicitation to all local dealers to get prices. So again, there is an opportunity cost associated with creating those bids and making sure we have all the specs and all that kind of stuff. So again, it has not been done recently.
You have to do the specs anyway through Enterprise to tell them what you want.
Correct, but Enterprise, that's part of our overall cost with Enterprise. We would actually have to do all of that independent. So if we did not have the Enterprise contract, our purchasing department would have to be the one creating the spec, because Enterprise would be one of the companies that would bid on it. So our procurement law does not allow you to use a company to help you create the specs. They can't then bid. So you don't want to eliminate vendors.
Why would you have to have Enterprise do your specs? I mean, the person that's using the truck would tell you what you wanted and what they needed.
But you're also talking a department of 3 people that have to write all this. There is very specific language in creating a bid document that has to be created. Yes, we don't need Enterprise, but it takes time and it takes resources. And right now, this resource is being helped by us having Enterprise.
Seems to me like you really don't know if you're paying too much or not to begin with, if you're not putting them.
The piece that I am confident on is that we have reduced our maintenance costs and that we have reduced the age of our fleet and made it safer for our employees.
The reason the maintenance cost is so much less is because your trucks, the vehicles are less than 5 years old. That's when you have your least amount of maintenance anyway, not until
And
afterwards.
again, the lease program allows us to keep them at that younger age
Yeah.
and safer age for our employees.
Do us a favor and supply us with the list of all leased vehicles, which departments, the models of the vehicles, as well as what department they're being attributed to. I don't see that really in here, I guess.
It is not.
Yeah, and that's important. I'd like to make sure, I think the council would like to make sure that the idea of the leasing was to possibly, to replace the old fleet that we had. I would have more reservations as far as just adding on more vehicles because it's getting.
And that is not happening.
Good.
Is that
Perfect.
it is a 1-for-1.
Good.
Departments, unless they have added an employee that requires a vehicle, the replacement has always been 1-for-1.
Great, okay.
And that is something that has been in place since this program has started. The departments have not been allowed to say, well, I'd like you to get rid of this 1986 Crown Vic and get 2 whatevers. That's not what's been happening.
Lamborghinis?
Yes.
Okay.
Pam, so after the 5 years, and it seems like you're going to have the whole fleet recycled, what if you choose to not have to keep recycling them until you start having a problem? Could we renegotiate and get a better rate, maybe?
So again, as I said, we always have the ability to look at the fleet with Enterprise and say, in year 6 next year, let's just make an assumption, 25 vehicles are on year 5. But we only feel that 4 of them are really necessary to be replaced because of their mileage. Or 4 of them need to be replaced due to their mileage, and 1 of them is being replaced because the value that we can get for it is advantageous to the county. There's nothing in our contract with Enterprise says that we have to lease X number of new vehicles every year. It just says that we will work with them to do this leasing program, and they will be our financing agent.
Jeff?
The terms of the lease, is it the same for a pickup truck and a dump truck? It's all 5 years?
These are passenger vehicles.
Okay.
Anything that is considered, so like we can get heavy-duty trucks that can have a dump body on it, but the great big dump equipment, that is purchased on a different way. Because that's not a passenger vehicle that can be easily, it has to be either financed
Right.
through a big equipment company and or just purchased outright.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
I'll get up. There you go. You can take my seat.
They are the finest,
Coming in deep.
Wicomico's finest.
Right here. 17. It's got smaller since I left the office. There we go.
Yeah.
Here, too. Very good.
Yeah, which number?
The department is 17. Unfortunately, my page numbers are slightly different than yours. Mine is page 42. I don't know if it's page,
It's still 31, it starts at the very bottom of that same page.
Yeah.
31.
Yeah.
Other expenses?
Yes.
yeah, I print mine slightly different just because of,
Very
Wow,
bottom is where it
right after the
starts.
other. Okay.
sorry. So I can't tell you page numbers because I put space in for me.
It's probably the yellow one. Oh, they're always, sorry. Yes, they are. Yeah, it's. Minor mark.
I was trying to think if my water bottle was causing that hump.
And on where they ask the question. All right.
Good afternoon.
How you doing?
Good.
Sheriff,
I'm doing okay.
I saw you were called out early this morning from the presentation, from the Beaver Run dedication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
Comes with the territory, right?
That it does.
Yeah. It's done very well. Done really well.
I graduated from Beaver Run. Sixth grade graduation.
A lot of people in the room did.
Did they actually have a graduation?
They actually had a graduation ceremony, sixth grade. Yeah. I went there 2 through 6,
So did
5 years.
Michael Stauffer did.
Uh-huh.
And so did Cherie Sample Hughes.
Wow.
A lot of people. Michael Stauffer lived across the street.
Did you ride a horse back then, Joe?
Pardon me?
Did you ride a horse to school back then?
No, I went in an express wagon.
Josie picking on you.
You know, I did feel old when they said Ron Willie was the second principal there, because he was principal there when I was there. Ron Willie, yeah. Made me feel really old.
He's a nice guy.
Oh, he was, but man, he was a strict disciplinarian, I can tell you that.
Really.
Not as bad.
We were all terrified of him.
One we had, she'd show you the paddle in a heartbeat.
You remember Miss Lacates at Powellville?
Yeah, I didn't go to Powellville.
I went to Powellville kindergarten first and half a second in Powellville. And out of VFW down there. I was.
Well, if you, we'll let you have the floor. I know that.
Well, thank you.
The big thing right now is what we're looking at, expenses across the board. We get it. Salaries is a big one, as you know, so we're certainly open to hearing everything that you have to say.
Well, I don't have to tell you, we've had multiple discussions here in the last several weeks. In fact, I've had those discussions with multiple council members, including Councilman Merritt yesterday. We're in a crisis mode right now in the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office. I know you guys know that. Just had another tenured employee tendered his retirement papers today, effective immediately, citing the abolishment of LEOBR and the anti-law enforcement climate, and Joey Thompson. And he decided to go. But Joey's been a staple in our office forever, 30-plus years to be exact. So that's about 18 vacancies for us right now at the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office. 18 vacancies for us right now. We currently have 4 in the academy scheduled to graduate next month, and we have 5 that are hopefully going to be going this next academy class that we've hired. We hope all 4 graduate. We hope they stick around. We've had some that have graduated, including one that was the president of his class. And the first week he got cut loose on his own. He said, "This is not for me," and he resigned. So we don't know what to expect, quite frankly. We truly don't. I do know that earlier this week I was advised that 2 of our current employees had applied for the Talbot County Sheriff's Office. Talbot County Sheriff's Office are doing lateral hires of sworn law enforcement officers with 2 or more years' experience, starting them out at $62,000 a year. Caroline County Sheriff's Office is starting them out at $67,000 a year. So it's difficult to compete. And I was told on Tuesday that the Maryland State Police are going to be starting a lateral academy class and paying guys very handsome salaries up to 9 years of prior law enforcement experience, commensurate with 9-year troopers on the job. So a lot of guys are coming out of the academy making $94,000, $96,000 a year. I don't say that because I think our guys coming out of the academy deserve $94,000, $96,000 a year. I'm telling you, that's a dire crisis right now. In my 16 and a half years at the Sheriff's Office, I've never, ever seen it like this. We've never had to beg people to apply for us like I do. I truly do, everywhere I go. To give you some idea, when I came on in 1984, you literally were competing with thousands of people to come on the job. And so many applicants never made it, period. And now it's very difficult to find anybody who wants to be a cop. And I understand why.
So, Mike, it's not all about money all the time, is it?
No.
No.
No. It's not all about money. But one thing's for sure, if we don't pay them here, Joe, they're going elsewhere. I sent Councilman Cannon a text message I received last night when I was working out in my garage, a discouraging text message, quite frankly, that I had received from my office regarding several more employees leaving. So they feel they're not being recognized like other agencies are, quite frankly, paying. And I know we might not have the money that other counties have, but one thing's for sure, if we don't pay our people a handsome salary and pay them a competitive salary, and if we don't pay attractive salaries for entry-level candidates, we're in trouble. They're going elsewhere. And I've never felt like this, and I told Council President Cannon this, I've never felt like this in my 16 and a half years with the Sheriff's Office. I feel like I've failed my own people. I truly do. I don't know what to say other than we've got to do better than what we're doing. We've got to do better. And that is not my usual opening for a budget presentation, but these are unprecedented times for the Wicomico County Sheriff's Office. And unprecedented times means we have to do unprecedented things that we've never done before. It is what it is.
It's funny you said that because I just wrote that down, unprecedented. I really did. With the national climate that we now have. It's very unfortunate. Wicomico County's been very fortunate in the fact that a lot of the national hysteria hasn't really come down to the local level. You know, this has been a very stable community, and we've been very fortunate to that. But I'm afraid that the one thing that we haven't been able to avoid is that this national climate has been sort of pervasive, and I believe we're even witnessing that locally. And as you said, not only has it compromised the safety of the officers, but it's also made many people reluctant to get into the profession now.
Yeah.
And I get it. I mean, Joe, I'm as conservative as you can get. Michael, you know that. I think anybody here knows that, and so is Joe. But again, with things being as unprecedented they are, I think we have to work very hard, work much harder in order to keep everybody, and also in order to recruit everybody. So it's very unique. This isn't an issue that we have throughout government. It's specifically oriented to law enforcement, more so than any other department we have in the county.
We've had 11 cops shot in the country since Saturday night. 2 of them that were shot and killed were actually female officers, Katie and Ariana. Ariana was a beautiful police officer in Chicago who was scheduled to graduate tomorrow with her master's degree in law. She'd already had her cap and gown pictures taken. Beautiful, light-skinned girl was approached by 4 thugs and shot and killed in uniform, executed, and then robbed her of her Apple Watch and her weapon. And fortunately, they were able to track the suspects because they had her Apple Watch. And the other girl was shot and killed by a DUI suspect. She had simply stopped to help him. He had run in a ditch. He was drunk driving, and she got shot and killed. So it's
So
Sheriff,
it's all the time.
where are we getting our applicants from? Are they coming from other departments?
Well, one of our recent hires came from Albuquerque, New Mexico, only because his wife, he married a young lady originally from the area, graduate of Salisbury Christian School, who wanted to come back and deliver their first child here, so she would have her mom and dad to help her with childcare. So he transferred from Albuquerque. 6'8", 6'9", good-looking guy, mixed martial arts guy. And has been a great addition to our office, not to mention he's African-American, so that helps us out tremendously. But he's just a great guy, spirit-filled guy, just got a great demeanor about him, just a great guy. We just hired a female who will be going to academy class in July. She graduated from Salisbury University. She's from Fairfax County, Virginia. So her name's Caroline, so we're tickled to have her joining the rank and files of our office. But they're acting. We got a couple recent transfers out of New Jersey. So, we've got applicants from different locations. We got one from the Baltimore area. His name is Jack Lowe. He does have family in this area, but he's from the other side of the bridge. But he's going in the next academy class. We just signed him up last Thursday or Friday last week. So, but he's from the other side of the bridge. But he does have family down here.
Do you have any luck with that young lady I told you about? Or have you?
Not yet. I'm still waiting for a call back.
Okay, all right.
So
She may not, but.
this budget is built on the pay scale that has been provided to council previously, which is an upgraded pay scale from the original negotiated contract. Fiscal '24 is the last year under the CBA, but we are requesting that the pay scale be adjusted for fiscal '24 so that the base salary would be at $55,000. Additionally, this department is requesting 5 new employees, primarily to be able to fill additional slots at the Board of Education, as we've discussed previously. And one other new employee that we're looking at hiring is when the new building comes online, they're going to need a dedicated employee kind of as a maintenance person over there. So we have funded in the budget a half-year position such that it would start in January. We would hire in January for somebody to be at that facility, available to them for maintenance aspects at the new building.
The 5 new employees or the new employees for SROs, okay, does that get paid out of the sheriff's?
So it gets paid out, it's a revolving.
Okay.
So it gets.
Then reimbursed.
They're, yes, and then reimbursed.
Well,
So they're billed, so we pay the expense in the general fund, and then we get a revenue back from the Board of Education for those employees.
Like with needing deputies as you do, where is the first preference at? SORs or on the road? I mean, so you need these deputies, but you can only hire so many. So what positions do you fill first? Do you fill SROs first? Do you fill on the road first? How do you?
If they're being funded and reimbursed by the Board of Education, they would definitely go into the schools and fill the positions in the schools. We have a commitment to put SROs in every school here in the county, including elementary schools, Joe. But we need deputies in our criminal investigation division. We need them on road patrol. Our shifts are short. We need them everywhere, quite frankly.
I understand that, but who makes, I guess, do
We
you
do.
make the decision on,
Yeah.
are we going to do SORs first? So if the board's requesting, what is it, $1 million extra, something like that for SROs? So if we give them that money and you don't have the deputies to fulfill those positions,
We've been filling some of it on overtime to keep those positions filled. People who are SRO certified, who are on their day off, we've been paying them overtime to keep our commitment to the schools filled.
so you feel like the $1 million that we give the board, that you'll be able to.
Absolutely.
Be able to fulfill those.
I do.
Obligations, okay,
Yeah, we're committed to doing that.
okay.
We're committed to doing that.
Our original request was 20 extra new deputies to fill all our divisions and build up our divisions and be able to deal with the school resources. I was told early on in the budget process to cut that in half. So wherever you see something doubling is where we had 5 deputies going into the academy last year. We'll have 10. So those amounts have doubled. Pretty much everything across the rest of the budget is either flat or was based upon the 5-year average.
Do we pay for the deputies to go to the academy?
We pay everything until they're ready to go to the academy. So if we hire a deputy tomorrow, he won't go to the academy until July. He'll graduate in December. He'll be ready to go to work about March. So it's basically 9 months that we have to fund and equip before they're ready to go to
And what's their obligation to stay? Any?
We have a contract in position where they have to pay certain things back, but we also have a position that if somebody's telling you they don't want to work here anymore, it's a danger keeping them on. So we have both sides of that to deal with.
If they are transferring, if we have paid for their training and they transfer to another law enforcement agency, that's an easier ability to enforce our contract than somebody who does not want to be a law enforcement officer.
Is this starting salary competitive enough
At
55.
at 55?
Yeah, that puts us in a ballpark. Would I like to see it 58? Absolutely. You bet I would. You bet I would.
What about the deputy at the airport? Is that paid and then funded out of the airport budget?
So,
Or-
yeah, so again, all sworn officers are paid out of the general fund, and any work that those sworn officers do that are contracted through is then reimbursed to the general fund. So the airport has a line of expense to pay the general fund back for having those deputies man the facility.
Is that true with the Ball Stadium also?
Any time our employees are in uniform at an event, they are billed out.
Getting reimbursed from the Ball Stadium?
Yes, our school reimbursement is huge. You can see that in our revenue.
I said Ball Stadium. I said.
So, yeah,
we did get
we also get
reimbursed.
reimbursed from,
You said school, I meant, yeah.
Okay.
But,
well,
so-
there's
All
ball-
athletic
there's ball
events,
stadiums at all 3 schools.
Shorebird Stadium, out at the airport, all reimbursable overtime.
and anytime there is a significant event at the Civic Center, that is billed into the cost for the promoter coming through, and those charges are also billed to the event. Thus, the revenue comes back to the general fund.
I'm glad to see these increases. I think they're needed.
Much needed. Overdue.
I just want to say one thing. We have a
Get that mic right near you there, Shanny. I know you're usually very, very loud. But,
John can't hear very good either.
I just want to say with the information that I had prior to us debating on we had our council meetings, and when I see that you have 18 vacancies and all that, that makes me want to support the 55,000. And I know the schools I'm so glad I don't have to put any kids through school today because they're getting dangerous. And I think the teachers, the school board's gonna have the same problem as you have because of the safety factor. So I would be willing to support the salary increase.
Thank you, Ms. Shaney.
I know with the potential 5 new SROs, that still doesn't give us 1 per school. Is that where we're trying to get to there?
Over a 3-year period, that's our goal. 5 a year.
Yeah.
The one other thing to point out is that built into the capital budget is just over $2.3 million to equip the new facility. So that's funded in the PAYGO side of things. But that is PAYGO funding that we are looking so that they will have the ability to do furniture and fixtures for the new facility.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be the last amount for the new facility. For the new facility.
We've had a few change orders, but we've been able to keep them very minimal, actually, when you
Yeah,
think of
and
the initial cost, yes.
And it so far is still within the contingency that we had built into the budget.
Major doesn't get much sleep.
The fact that we paid the city $274,000 for a permit to build a police department within the city of Salisbury still gets me a little riled up.
Paid what now?
In order to build our new building, we needed a building permit, and that building permit cost the county $274,000 that we had to pay to the city.
Lost building didn't need one.
How much did it cost to tap in the water? and sewer?
274,000 per pump.
How much did our water and sewer cost?
There are only estimates out there. We really won't know until we get up operational.
Well, that's expensive too.
It's going to go up, I think, 15% though.
Yeah, we mean from, if we.
They're going to get it
flat-
one way or the other, right?
Anything to add, Pam?
No, it just, those are the main points associated with this budget.
Oh, I do have a question. The community outreach. Is it similar to what I called about? Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, it's a brand-new line item.
Thank you. I saw that and I was hoping that's what it was. Okay. All right.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms.
I'm
Shaney.
happy.
You ask and you receive.
Major, I know that Mrs. Hurley was kind enough to go through a lot of this for the council and has been a really big help to the council and everything. And she came across a few items I believe she may have shared with you for some particular positions where she was concerned. I know we talked about one of them where the reason it went from 80 to 40, she was concerned there may have been an error there, but I believe you shared that it was a new hire. Someone had left and it was a new hire at a lower
Yeah.
rate.
Yes,
So-
and some of it is positions that have gone and are being replaced, so the numbers get recycled, and that may have caused some of the confusion, this
Yeah.
number. But yes, I mean, of course, we've had someone who retired basically effective today. We had him budgeted at his full salary. His replacement will come in at a starting salary.
So
There is a good
Our-
side of this when we get the top out, but we'd like the top to go out a little slower than,
So the position control number that you see in this document, that is a recycled number. There is a set number of position control numbers for every department, and those are assigned by title. It is not by person. So when a title retires, a lot of times those position control numbers those position control numbers get reused for the next new hire. That could or could not be at the same amount. So we have come to you because sometimes we have hired somebody at a higher number than what that position control number was at previously. We've also, when we create this budget, we look at who we currently have staffed and which ones are currently vacant. And so those numbers may go down year over year. Depending, sometimes the position control number follows the title. So sometimes, not always, but sometimes you can have a position control number that is set to be the title. I'll just use major. You know, we have one major position control number. If somebody would promote into that, their position control number may change. So again, it's a set number of position controls by department. It is not, we do not create new ones each time somebody is hired.
I've had a few conversations, Major, you and I have had some conversations. I know that you have a great staff, Michael, and the council and the community really does appreciate the professionalism of all your deputies whenever we meet them. You have an extraordinary, excellent group, and I attribute that to you as a sheriff of Wicomico County and your leadership. Knowing you for quite a while, I don't think I've had as many conversations with you as I have over the last few weeks, and I appreciate that. Your perspective helps a lot. And I certainly think it shouldn't go unsaid that your advocacy for your department and your deputies has no bounds. And it was very important for me to be able to listen to you and to recognize exactly what this department needs and what is best for your people as well.
As council president, I appreciate you sending me a text message requesting to come to the office and personally meet with me. So thank you for that, and the major. Really do appreciate that. And Councilman Baker, same with you. You're texting me all the time. I know you're very concerned about the salary increases, as are, I think, everybody in this room. And I recognize that. And I can't tell you how happy I am to see both Josh and Shaney back at this table. And I mean that. I know you guys have had some health issues going on, but welcome back. We value you guys 100%. I want you to know that. We truly do. It's good to see everybody in this room.
Any questions? All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. We know you have busy schedules.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Make it, Pam? Good on time?
Keep it going. Keep it going.
Lightning round.
That's what I'd say.
Lightning, yes.
42 minutes.
42 minutes to get 2 done. Come on, we can do this.
All right, Dave, thank you very much.
If the
See you tomorrow.
answer, if the answer is yes, no problem here.
Oh, Lord. I know what you said.
Dave, let the public know who you are, please.
Dave Ryan, Director of Salisbury Wicomico Economic Development. And glad to be here.
So I will let Dave explain the increases, but there are 2 increases, but he has 2 lines in the budget, basically.
Well,
Which page? Sorry, it's a big
For
book.
me, it's 39, but I don't know what it is for you. Laura, would you like me to try to find it in your book? 'Cause
39?
it's Department 38. It was my page 39, but I don't know what
Okay.
page it is for you guys.
This being other?
I got it right.
No, it won't be in other funds. It'll be in the general fund. Here, may I?
Department. I don't mean to be a pain in the butt.
It's right after package.
Page 30.
They have it, they're slightly different.
Pam knows that thing forwards and backwards.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Good memory.
Page 30.
It's in the general fund?
Yes, in the general fund,
Okay.
It's not that long.
page 30,
General
Okay.
fund
general fund
page.
expenses.
It's part of the expenses on page 30. That's
Yes.
right? Okay.
Very, very, last 2
Economic
lines on the
development,
bottom.
I see, I got
Yeah,
it.
and we got them right here,
In
dude.
case you need it, it's right here. Under.
you come in Monday.
If you don't mind, yeah, I think what we're just interested in, as you know, is mostly the case. There's an increase. Just curious as to what it is. And
Yeah. Well, if I can, real quick, and I'll run through it real quick, but we're asking for a little over $228,000 this year to run an economic development department. The other 100 or so, 110 will come from municipalities and the private sector. With those funds, we'll continue to deploy the Rural Maryland Economic Development Fund. That's the $3.3 million we're using to start the aviation maintenance technician school at the airport. Floors are being done, bathrooms are being renovated right now. We're on schedule. The curriculum was approved 2 days ago by the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, so it goes to the Maryland Higher Education Commission next. It's an exciting time for the airport and particularly for that school. To create a pipeline of talent coming out of that school. In exchange, we think we can retain scheduled airline service. We think we can grow scheduled airline service for our region. We can grow that aviation and aeronautics sector. We can provide great jobs for people right here. So that'll continue next year with these funds and probably even into the following fiscal year. That program also includes a strategic plan for SBY and includes shovel-ready sites for SBY, so we'll continue to do that. We did have Governor Moore in and Senate President Ferguson in a couple of weeks ago. I think they were highly engaged in the program. For those of you who are there, I think you'll agree that they were highly engaged. We made a pretty significant request, which they didn't fall off their seats, so that was encouraging as well. Next year, we'll continue to our shovel-ready site program. The good news is we lack a lot of vacant and empty large industrial buildings. The bad news is we lack a lot of large and vacant industrial buildings, so we want to create a shovel-ready site program so somebody coming in can actually proceed to construction. We can eliminate that 12 to 18-month site approval process, and we'll use our existing revolving loan fund to do that. We'll continue to work on the port. We have about 1 million tons coming up the river. We want to maintain that 1 million tons. It's important for dredging a third of that river every year. We think you'll see new commodities coming up that river. We have about 300 or 400 barges coming up each year full of something, an equal number leaving full of nothing, so there may be some opportunities to export as well. We'll continue to work with the U.S. Department of Transportation, their Marine Administration Division, and exploring the possibility of becoming a part of their marine highway system, which really creates new opportunities from a grant perspective at the federal level. With those funds, we'll continue. We'll start partnering with the MARBIDCO, the Maryland Agriculture and Resource-Based Industrial Development Corporation, and they have a local government cost share program for agricultural producers and small businesses. Is really emerging in the marketplace. We've had a couple of requests this past year, and we want to be one of those counties that participate in that particular program. We've got about 3 or 4 other things going on around there. We will continue our outreach to our existing business base and the municipalities within Wicomico County, which we are working closely with. I know Pittsville just created an Economic Development Commission, and we're scheduled to meet with their team in the next couple of weeks. We look forward to that. But we'll continue our outreach to our existing business base. You'll see a new manufacturer locate in Wicomico next year. They purchased a facility last year, designing a new building to go on the same parcel this year. It's been another 30 or 40 jobs or so. We'll have more information on that during the next fiscal year. So that's about what we're up to at the Economic Development Department. We do that with a staff of 2. And probably one of the lower funded economic development, in fact, the 3rd lowest in the state of Maryland, which I kind of like that position.
So,
I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
so there's basically 2 lines in their budget. One is their standard line of funding for their department, and that's a 7% growth. So they asked for 189 last year, they asked for 203 this year, and that's increased costs. The additional $25,000 is for that program for the agricultural side of things, to be able to be a matching fund for a state program to allow small agricultural businesses to seek funds from the state and us. So that $25,000 would only be tapped if a program is awarded. So it's not like with his main number, it's an appropriation, we send them money. I can't remember if you're monthly or if you're annually. I can't.
We're annually.
So we give them their money up front at the beginning of their year. But the $25,000 would stay in our bank account until they come to us with an approved program that meets the requirements of the state. And so that $25,000 is just a seed there to allow for the ability to award those projects.
If that money is awarded, does it come back next year as well? Is it recurring?
So we would ask for, most likely, for that $25,000 to continually to be funded. And so, you know, in this first fiscal year, we might only fund $6,000, but next year we might have enough projects that we use all $25,000. So it's a matter of who approaches us, or him.
I mean, if we're doing good, we'll be right back here next year.
Yeah, right.
That would be a good problem, right?
Exactly.
Because then it's creating businesses and it's creating agricultural stuff for our county.
It says Marbitco. Yeah, it's a state agency already, and
Is there any more COVID-19 funding down from the federal government at all, or is that completely done?
it's completely done from our perspective in terms of the grant proceeds. I mean, the grants that we did during the pandemic.
The money that's
We don't have any. I don't know what the
the money
ARPA and that
remaining
type
for us is the American Rescue Funds that we have talked to you guys about on, and there is some funding in this budget for that.
I didn't know we had to. It was the 25 would come back to the council, or?
Well, no, what I'm
would it-
saying is next year we would put
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
25,000 in
yeah,
again.
yeah,
No, they wouldn't repay it.
Yeah, if we don't use it, then we better go to Plan B. But
Yeah, if you
I
don't
think
need it, then next
then we won't be here next year.
But it's not a revolving loan fund. It's a grant.
No, it's a grant. It's a matching grant where the applicant and the state, Marbitco, and us put in funds.
What kind of jobs would it help with? Like agricultural jobs, but any ag job, or?
Yeah, it's the requests that we had last year were a couple were, I don't want to, they wanted a piece of equipment that could increase their throughput, and they were breaking even, but increasing the throughput with a bigger piece of equipment could be more profitable for the small farmer. As a small farmer,
Right.
then we'd like to be able to fill that. Another one was putting a sewer line in, and it was a little bit expensive for a small farmer, where these funds could help provide that gap.
So it's 25,000, and then the state would match it, I guess, up to a certain?
Yeah, they cap it at, any jurisdiction is capped at 25, so the most we could expend is $25,000. So our vision at SWED would be $2,500 grants. That's what we would do, matched by the applicant, matched by the Marbitco. That could change, but that's the vision.
When I think of ag, I think of $1 million tractor.
Right, and this is more emerging businesses, small businesses, stands a farmer may want to start to get involved with.
So it could be
these
like
type of
anything
things.
in the agricultural field.
Agriculture, forestry.
Not a DAF tank, though.
I actually work to help create these programs with Steve McHenry and others. So yeah, it's actually, you can use them for a whole suite of options from the agriculture side of thinking, including things like, there's been a lot of money put into local wineries or other kind of, those kinds of businesses, or making pickles, or you name it.
Really?
But there's a lot of those kinds of jobs that can really help sustain and keep a farm in business. Just
So-
that much more.
And then, as he stated,
Produce.
25,000 is the max that any local jurisdiction can award as a match for awards that the state gives. So we put in the total that we would possibly be able to award in any given year, and we may or may not award all of that.
So Councilman Hastings, what I whispered to Dave was, please mention it's Marbitco, because Councilman Hastings will know what that is.
Yeah, a lot really great program they've done. They were helped put together. They were created, Norm Conway background, in addition to the Rural Maryland Council and all that, and into one big bill, which has really helped support our county a whole lot. So
Well, if other counties are participating, I just want to compete.
yeah.
I think the council certainly is very glad to support you in what you're doing.
Always have, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have you in the role that you have representing Wicomico County. Your professional expertise, it's really important. I've seen it firsthand when you have to represent Wicomico County with CEOs that are coming into town, industries, the work that you have to do alone with just the airport in Piedmont is very invaluable to this area. And more recently here, you talked about with the governor coming into town, and I told you this personally, but I think, with the council here, your presentation was absolutely fabulous. It was so important that Wicomico County made a very professional presentation to the governor and to the president of the state senate. And that happened, and it was your presentation. Tony Rudy did an excellent job, and so did you. So it was an opportunity to witness firsthand just what you are doing to benefit this county.
Sure, thank you.
Well, and I don't think Dave knows this, just as an aside on that, the county executive contacted the governor to let her know that curriculum was approved, so he was excited about that. And at Bill's signing on Monday, I got a moment to talk to the Senate president and thanked him for coming to the airport, and he said he was really excited about the project.
Good, yeah. They were very engaged.
I think so. I think you're going to see more out of that.
Really productive.
Just one more question, and then I'm done talking. So we're going to have a sanitation district coming up. I mean, obviously, that's right around the corner. I know that's a big pill to swallow, but I was just thinking the only industrial space we have is in the city limits, and city taxes are astronomical, right? And I don't know if that's something that maybe, it's just an idea, maybe we could think about like a sewer and water, and then have it in a place where we have industry. That way we can promote some growth outside of the city, so people can actually move here. Because I mean, I'm in the process of wanting to buy a building, and I can tell you, we don't want to buy one in the city limits, because it's insane how much the taxes are with the county and city both, and then the sewer and water and everything. So that was just my 2 cents.
The one difficulty with that is that MDE and the state is only going to allow us to have water and sewer in certain places. And the fact that there is a sewer system here around the growth area, they're going to, instead of us building a new, and having worked at the city of Salisbury, running and us being responsible for upgrading, if there's one already there, unfortunately, it makes more sense to tap into the one that's already there.
I'm just saying, but the county, I guess, can't commandeer the cities. Or is that just not going to happen?
You know,
Can't do that.
I know you can't do that, but I'm just,
I'll stay away from that commentary, but I do want to compete. I want us to compete for projects, and water and sewer is important. There are industrial areas outside municipal limits, all 8 municipal limits, and we will pursue everything we can to create more jobs, wherever they may be.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Sure. Thank you.
Side.
Pam, we're getting there.
30 minutes.
I had 30 more questions.
Guys, have a good night.
You're not allowed to ask them, John. They're not there.
27 minutes.
One more.
Yeah, one more.
And I think we did notify them they were,
Get out of here.
oh, she's here, great.
She's here.
She's here. She's doing good work.
Oh, man. I'm gonna get up.
Good
a while to
afternoon.
go have a seat.
Good afternoon. Have a seat.
Long time no see, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is page 41.
Page 41.
Thank you.
We brought some kitties and some puppies with you.
It would reduce the stress
Don't
level.
joke, John.
It would definitely reduce the stress level.
I could have brought the two, two moms and the litters of kittens that just poured in right before we left.
We had 25 animals come in today.
25.
Okay.
If you could, for the public, let us know your name and your title, your position for the public.
Yep. Kim Knock, Executive Director of the Humane Society.
Kim Helmbrecht, shelter manager.
Thank you. Glad to have you here. Appreciate you
Thank
taking
you.
the time.
So I've never had to do this, so just keep that in mind.
You're asking for big money.
Yeah.
So we put in their request as they have presented
There it
it
is.
this year. And that is what we did in the last several years. They have asked for increases in both areas, both in the animal control as well as the shelter number. Both of those increases, if I remember correctly from your numbers, and I unfortunately can't seem to pull them up on my phone, but is primarily increased costs and the number of intakes that they have and number of animals that they're taking care of and the number of calls that they have for their animal control aspects. So these increases are based on what's going on in costs right now.
And even with animal control, we've done a little bit of changing on how that, I've actually put an officer on Saturdays. We have one officer on Mondays and one officer on Saturdays. And then I've finagled their schedule so one comes in late and stays on later. So they're going out for calls a little bit later at night. And they still try to only go out for emergency situations as far as on call. But I have 2 really good officers now that are doing an amazing job. So they're out on the road. I mean, we barely even see them inside of the shelter. They're on the road a lot. I had an officer that wasn't really doing his job very well before.
And that's the cost increase for control, right? And then you also,
Yeah, well-
a second line item for the shelter.
Yeah, so for the shelter, I mean, before I started, they euthanized. You know, they literally just walked down the aisle and this one, this one, this one, this one. We try not to do that. I don't hesitate in euthanizing for the right reasons, but we find that the community is not going to support us if we just euthanize willy-nilly like that. We're not quite at the no-kill rate, and I don't care about that. But we sit about 86% live release rate. And to be considered a no-kill shelter, you have to maintain a 90% rate for the year. So there's many months that we're well over 90%, but then a few months where we fall short on that. So we get a lot more community support now than we ever have. But we have a full shelter. So during COVID, we actually got down to only having like 8 dogs inside the shelter. We have 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, about 58 or 59 right now.
And we have 40 indoor kennels.
40 indoor kennels, 13 outdoor kennels, of which probably 11 of those are full. So it's like 1 out, 3 in. Like she said, we took in 26 animals today, something like that. 25 animals in one day. People are getting evicted every day. We did an eviction today where it was 4 dogs. People just losing their homes, animals being dumped, people not being able to care for them and having to surrender them for medical reasons, and then, then they become our issue.
Any questions for anyone?
Yeah, it's just a simple question. What's that cafe in town now? What is it, the Kitten
So she is
Cafe?
actually our foster coordinator. So all of those
You're done.
kittens.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Just kidding.
All of those kittens that she fosters would have been inside of our shelter being cared for. But we have a foster network of people and a foster coordinator, and and it's an unpaid position, of course. But she sends them all out into foster homes, and then out of her own pocket, well, and she's going to be a nonprofit, so none of that expense is coming out of our pocket, just the care and medication for the actual kittens. She's paying for all of that out of her own pocket, and she's opened a little kitten cafe, and that is for people to come and meet all the kittens that are out on foster, so they don't have to come inside of the shelter. And she's going to be her own nonprofit anyway. So, but right now we're just kind of working together. So we're not paying any expense for any of that.
I was just going to say, I hear that's like a hit right now.
Well, it was successful. They had over like 530 some people come through it
Right.
Saturday.
So you keep them well supplied with new kittens.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. And I mean, we are doing our best to work with like the TNR cat groups and stuff to get these cats in Wicomico County fixed, at least fixed and TNR'd. We don't really adopt out feral cats, so those cats most of the time do end up getting euthanized unless we can find a rescue group to send them with. We send to rescues, like we'll send out at least once or twice a month to a rescue group. I mean, we just sent, how many did we send the last run? It was maybe like 15 to 20 cats we sent out to a rescue organization. So we are doing everything we can to move them out, but we have a large number of pit mixes, and the rental properties, of course, do not want you to have a pit mix, and it's just a little more difficult to adopt, those dogs out. It takes a little bit longer.
Josh?
Just for posterity, I guess, is it probably the second or third most amount of calls I get are typically with animal control related or something along those lines. Just for everyone's clear who's watching on TV right now, can you reiterate the difference succinctly, I guess, in, as best you can, the difference between the county side of things versus the nonprofit, what your roles are, I guess?
So I just oversee animal control. We are contracted to take in any stray that's picked up in Wicomico County or in the city of Salisbury. And that's what we do for our contract. So anything animal control picks up comes to our facility, and then we either handle the return to owner or we handle the actual adoption.
Do you get any funding from the city?
Yes. We get funding from the city, and also we get some funding from Del Mar to patrol their area.
Okay. Now, the city has their own, excuse me, their own animal control.
Yep.
Okay. So do they bring animals to you, then they pay you? Is that how?
Yes, yes. So they fund us every year just for housing the animals at their city officers. And then we also share, like, if they need somebody to cover their on-call, we'll cover their on-call, vice versa. So we help them out in that way, too.
Primarily the city funding, if I remember correctly from when I was with the city, it's paying on shelter costs. Since they have city employees that are animal control officers, so they're paying. The difference is we don't, as a county, employ animal control. The Humane Society employs the animal control, and we pay them to do that employment.
I think I was reading the other day where also with the economy being very questionable, with the downturn in the economy, you can see even a greater stress on your occupation as far as what you're going to have to take care of, because there could very much potentially be more animals coming who need your services.
I do believe it is going to get worse. And what we do for the community as far as low-cost vet care is priceless.
Right.
Because, I mean, right now we have 40 pages of surgeries to schedule for the public, and we're on page 20 of scheduling right now. And I'm bringing in outside vets to help as well. I have 3 outside vets that are doing pro bono work at our shelter as well.
I think it's funny, I know Joe and I are probably the only two that can attest to it, but with you coming into this role, it's amazing how you have turned it around 1,000%.
you.
Without question. So you've really done an excellent job over these last few years.
Thank
Very
you.
good. Yeah, thanks.
I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be and happy to be there.
That's what you want.
Just a little stressed sometimes.
Do you ever bring any animals in from outside the county?
No, the only time I've ever brought an animal in from outside of the county is when we were fairly empty and we had space for it, and that's a networking thing where other people help us out. We network when we can. Of course, every shelter's full right now, so it's hard for any of us to do it. But during COVID, when we all were, had minimal animals, we would help Somerset County or we would help Melfa and vice versa. Like we would send some of our dogs there. A lot of times if it's dogs that just need fresh eyes, it's better to move them to a different shelter and let them be seen by different people, because obviously if they're not getting adopted here, then we've maxed out our potential here. So, and we work with rescues too. So it's about building a network of people to help each other.
Questions?
What's your first name again?
Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Yeah.
All right. Any more comments? We're good? Pam?
We're good. Thank
Are you sure? Are you sure, Pam?
Yes.
We're going to give you
Here.
20 more minutes if you
Nope,
want.
I'm out.
Did you want to talk for 20 more minutes?
No.
We appreciate you taking your time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
We appreciate you guys.
Hey, Kim.
Yes.
Contact those folks.
Yes.
You made it.
We could-
Are we adjourned, John?
We're not adjourned yet. We're just, give us
Okay.
a couple of minutes. So let's, come on, Joe, we need to continue here.
Can't hear you.
I had a couple more budget questions there, did you? All right, Shane, do you have any questions or comments or?
No, I was just asking.
Okay. I didn't know if any council members had any comments they wanted to make at this time in reference to the departments that we've talked to today. Floor is open if you do.
Actually, I do have a question.
Use your mic.
So, and I guess this would be for Bunky or Pam or both. I was thinking, so we're looking at a 3% increase in for salaries for the rest of the county employees, right?
Yes.
Is there any way, is there any monies, anything that we can do to get that maybe up to 4 or 5% to do better than the 3?
So my goal, and what my goal was, that the budget that is presented, and it is presented this way, is that we do not have a structural deficit. That is what I always strive for. That is what administration has told me to strive for as well. A structural deficit means is that the revenues that are coming in the door are more than the expenses going out the door that are recurring costs. So our recurring costs, because if you notice, I know there's been discussion about the $10, $11 million worth of fund balance being used. That number is still less than the $17 million worth of pay-go that we're trying to fund. That's your quickest check that our revenues are better than our expenses, because we don't need every dollar to pay for our pay-go. That long statement right there is the concern I have is if we up this, and I would gladly take a bigger raise. I mean, don't get me wrong. Every employee would love more. The concern is it's always adding, and we only can raise our revenue by 2%. With everything that's coming along economically, I am not comfortable that our income tax is going to continue to grow at the level, because that is where we've been able to get a lot of our numbers from, because we have now crossed the path that our income tax is greater than our real property tax. Now, it is not greater.
What's the delay?
Pardon me?
What's the delay on the receipts that we get?
So we collect, it's 18 months.
Okay, that's what I think everyone needs to understand.
So that's the other piece, is that we're on an 18-month lag. So we're starting to hear this poor economic news. We're starting to hear layoffs. So far, Locally, it's been limited, but we're 18 months in arrears on collecting. The state holds those income tax numbers for about 18 months. Our final settlement is 18 months after collection. So we're still growing, but the number that's been put in this budget is not as significant a growth as it has been in the past couple of years because of that concern. And it's, we have a negotiation with the Sheriff's Department for next year for a contract. We have that coming down the pike. We also have the rest of Kerwin. We don't know the full effects of what Kerwin is going to do for the Board of Education. Yes, the Board of Education has asked for more than maintenance of effort, and they have very specific reasons why. Like everybody else, their costs have gone up, and they're asking for more sheriff's deputies to patrol over there, so that's an additional cost. So that's a really long answer to give you that we looked at additional numbers, and 3% was the number that we felt comfortable with at this moment.
So the 10 million out of PAYGO,
Correct.
is it projected in 2025 that we'll need to take another 10 million out?
No, because if you look at, and I did not bring the CIP with me, but the CIP in fiscal 25 has a significant drop in what we're looking at for borrowing and capital improvement, because we knew this was kind of the last year where we felt comfortable. Since I've taken this job, I have been projecting that 2025 was going to be a year where we're not going to do a lot of capital purchases. 2024, I'm sorry, Joe.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is government. You don't believe that, do you?
I don't believe what?
That there won't be something that comes up that we don't
But
need. I mean, there's going
to be stuff coming
somebody's
up.
going to say, hey, we don't have
Correct.
We don't have anything to spend money on. We need something.
So people will be asking, but we have also, when we created the CIP for 25, we very specifically said, you need to look really long and hard as to what you're putting in 25 and 26. They have to be your absolute necessities. So no, I'm not looking at another $10 million for next year in that realm. This is a partial carryover, but again, it was discussed with this administration and they agreed with that concept. The size of our savings account is not adding anything to our numbers with the bond market. Us using $10 million, pardon me?
It's security.
It is security, but it is also at a point where do we need to start using our savings account for the betterment of our county? Because we have we have grown that number significantly over the last several years. So does it make financial sense for us to do some of these deferred projects, do some of these projects that we need for this county to continue to move forward, to continue to grow our revenue base, and to continue to keep our infrastructure at a level that is important and important for us to have to continue to attract business and attract new people. So yes, it's security, but it is also, we're at a point where we feel as an administration that it's better to spend some to keep the things that we have or to grow for those strategic things that we need.
But once you spend it, it's gone.
It is gone, but
And the Eastern Shore delegation just sat there a week ago and told us, council, you better be careful with this budget because things aren't looking good.
and that's why,
Money's drying up.
and that's
State-
part of the reason why I stated that we were not comfortable going above 3%.
Well, that's for some people. And I looked at a line item where one person got a $35,000 raise.
So again.
Why is that?
So it's not, so the question becomes is whether or not that position is vacant. And if the position is
It
vacant.
wasn't vacant. It wasn't
You know
vacant.
about the position she's talking about?
No,
I know the vacant.
Out of,
But I don't want to hold you up, but. I'll
If you
text
can send that
position.
information to
I'll
me.
send it to you because I said to build the morale up, you give somebody a $35,000 raise. And you supposed sometimes keep salary secret, but salary is never kept secret within a department. They're gonna compare notes. And see, you're gonna have employees say, we're only getting 3%, because it's already been told to me. And some people are getting more. Why are we getting COLA and others are getting more? So that's the question that the administration may have to ask, or the department is.
So if you could please send me that specific
I will
position.
definitely do it. I'll send it to you. So I know you want to get out of here, because I do too.
yeah, with limited time, is there any way that, I know you're very busy, is there any way that you can assure us that, maybe with a projection over the next few years, how we will be replenishing our reserves, if at all, or what direction we
So-
need to go, as well as trying to get a real good feel for the fact that we are not overextending ourselves with recurring expenses. That's the biggest problem that we have, because we have a couple of $1 million worth at least of recurring expenses that we've just added. The Board of Education is one of those. But if you could help us with the easy math on what we have now committed to recurring expenses and how we can.
I will try to
be
put that
stable.
in a spreadsheet to show you, but, simple
That's how I looked at it.
simple numbers is that the fund balance that we had in '22 per the audit, and I don't remember that number off the top of my head, you subtract the amount that we budgeted to use a fund balance in fiscal '23. Again, we budget full employment. We have never had full employment. So we have never used every dollar of fund balance that we say that we're going to use. But worst case scenario is that we budgeted about 5 million and we're looking at budgeting about 10. That would be a $15 million decrease. I never expect us to spend $15 million. I don't expect us to grow like we've led the last couple of years, because income tax is what has had us grow. I expect us to not spend the number that we thought that we've budgeted. Because again, we budget full employment. That's a big deal. When you have a turnover, when you have 18 vacancies in the sheriff's department, that's 18 positions that we're not paying salaries, benefits, all that kind of stuff for. That makes a difference in how much expense we have. Right now, one number that is growing because of the fund balance that we have, the debt that we have taken on, and the interest rate environment we're in, we're actually making interest income for the first time since I have been here.
Wow.
Yeah, I think we're just want to make sure that we're not overextending ourselves.
And that's why
on recurring expenses.
And that's why I'm saying is that if you compare the one-time costs at 17 million and the fund balance at 10, that's showing you that we are creating a number that still is less than that.
Well, the one-time costs, the PAYGO, that's capital.
Correct.
I'm more worried about everything
what-
else we're doing in the operation.
But that's showing you that there's $7 million worth of space.
Well, and
But I didn't like the concept when you said it earlier, that, we've got this money, let's spend it.
But let's,
I mean, you didn't say that, but
so
you kind of
again,
alluded to it.
the other thing is there going to be a point in time that our taxpayers say, hey, you have banked all this money, shouldn't you be using it for our betterment?
We had that said by the Board of Ed before.
So
We can handle that.
Now, well, one thing I want to say is on the capital side, so if we don't use PAYCO for this, and assuming these projects are things that the county wants to do, that means we're going to take out, 5-6% loans. So actually by using PAYCO, we're saving money middle and long term.
I just never want to use savings for recurring expenses.
and that is not how we're budgeted.
I agree.
It's in the
We are
checking
100
account.
But didn't you just say, John, that there is a couple million?
No, I was referring to operations, not capital, not.
Or I meant operations.
Yeah. Operations.
Again, the fact that our capital number is greater than our use of fund balance shows we are not using savings for recurring expenses. If that was inversed, If we had more usage of savings than what we're spending on capital, that's a problem. We are not there.
Jeff, you have 2 minutes. Did you have a question?
I can do it in 10 seconds.
Thank you.
I think the position that Shania was referring to is the Director of Public Works. It went from 99 to just under 135.
And that is currently a vacant position, and we funded at the midpoint in the budget so that we have hiring space. So that is,
Increase that.
correct. The 35,000, again, like any vacant position, we fund at the midpoint, except for the sheriff's office, we fund at the base because that is where they're going to be hired at. But for other departments, like my department, I have a vacant position. We're going to fund it at the midpoint so that I have some flexibility to hire.
Okay, all right.
It scared me. It scared me.
Yeah,
No, it's not a specific person because there isn't anybody in that role.
You got 2 minutes, Pam.
I'm done.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, everybody.